Viewers, welcome back to Pavilion, and Sunday is the trip to St. James Park. Whew, let's be honest, that ground hasn't been kind to Arsenal in recent years, and Newcastle under Eddie Howe loves to frustrate us, loves to disrupt our rhythm, almost you could dare say, love to bully Arsenal players, and they've had the better of us in three of our last four meetings, especially last season. But I think this squad is different. I think we've got the resources, we've got the depth, and maybe, just maybe, we've got the bravery to flip the script. So let's break it all down. And of course, I'll have my predictions for the game. Okay, a bit of history. St. James Park, Arsenal's record is not that good. So last season we lost 1-0 in the league, and in the Carabao Cup games, Newcastle managed to squeeze us, to nullify us, to outmuscle us. Um, Isak was a handful, and it was probably the worst I've seen Gabriel and Saliba play in a long time. And these are two players that have been the rock for us, but for somehow they just were not at their races in that game. And Eddie Howe, well, he's got history, right? Against Arsenal, he adapts his team shape, he packs the midfield, slows the game down. He frustrates us into stale possession. So he gives us all the ball, but he just sits behind. So I would expect that this tactics is going to be deployed. And frankly speaking, most teams are going to deploy that practice onto Arsenal until we learn how to break them down. Picture Port Vale, with better players. That's exactly, what Newcastle will be doing on Sunday. So the key themes for me, if I look at this game and I'm just thinking about what we should expect to see, guys, it's going to be about possession versus purpose. So we all know that Arsenal, we love to have the ball. That's not in doubt. You only need to look at the game last week against Man City, all that possession stats and the dominance that Mikel Arteta called out. But the real question is, can we make it count? Last season we had possession, but Newcastle controlled the narrative, right? They still won that game. So we just don't need possession. We need actually penetration. And that comes down to my next key theme for this game, that midfield battle. This is where this game can be won or lost, right? How I feel like we're a little bit more robust now against the likes of Joelinton and Tonali. I know Gimenez played in the midweek, so I suspect that he might come into the squad, or maybe um, Eddie Howe might hold him back. But you can bet your bottom dollar that Joelinton is going to play because he loves to play him against Arsenal. So this is going to be key, right? And the real decision for Mikel Arteta is going to be, do I go with Merino or do I go with Eze and be brave? And I want to see bravery. I want him to go with Eze. I know that Odegaard has been training, but I wouldn't want Odegaard to come into the game immediately. I would say, let Eze start the game, and then if things, are shaping up differently, then we've got options. We can bring Odegaard into the game. But we've got to erase this narrative. Why not, being detrimental to ourselves that we stand negative in a lot of games? And it's a perception thing. It's not really reality, but of course, narratives really drive the agenda. So I think Arsenal will do well to do that. And then we've got wing duels. This is going to be spicy. Livramento has had lots of success over Saka in the games that we've played against Newcastle. And I know that Newcastle like to double on that side. So the key would be for us, what can we do on the other side of the pitch? Can we stretch Newcastle on that side of the pitch? Maybe Martinelli, this might be a game for Martinelli because it's another game away from home. So you want to have pace, to be able to take advantage of Newcastle. So this might be a game for Martinelli with maybe Trossard, coming off the bench. It's a shame that Noni Madueke is not available in this game. But I would rather want to see Martinelli. I rather want to see Eze, and I rather want to see Saka supporting Gyökeres up front. And our defensive solidity has to carry on in this game. I think this will be a game of very little chances. If you look at the stats, Newcastle don't give up lots of shots to other team. At least they've certainly not done that this season. So I think what they're doing is while they're trying to get their forward line sorted, they are making sure that they are robust in the defensive side of the pitch so that the new players that have come in can really, really settle. So you've got the likes of Elanga, you've got the new striker that they brought in. And I think this is clever management, to just make sure that and listen, Newcastle are not aspiring to win the title. I think their target is going to be top four. So as long as they don't lose in these games at this early stage of the season, they're going to be happy with that. So I think we've got to be wise to that Newcastle are not going to mind giving us possession. They're not going to mind Arsenal doing all the work, but they take advantage from set pieces and from counter attacks that they would create. And I think that, it's probably gone under the radar that Newcastle are also a good set piece team. I mean, see what they did with Liverpool. They scored two set piece goals as well. So Arsenal have got to be wary about that. And then I think overall, it's bravery, it's movement, it's disruption. And I think that Arsenal has to be brave. I want us to be brave in this game. We can't just have possession for possession's sake. We need constant movement to pull Newcastle's structure apart, and we need to make the defenders run in the opposite direction for Newcastle. And I think as long as we're doing that, then you know that we cannot afford to lose the ball where they can make quick transition. Because if you think what happened against Man City is anything to go by, Newcastle have even got faster players, with the likes of, Andy Gordon and Elanga. So, and Andy Gordon has played well against us in the past. I'm sure he's looking forward to playing well against us. So here's how I think that the forward line should look like. I think we have Gyökeres definitely up front. Like I say, I want to have Saka on the right. I want to have Martinelli on the left, and then I want to have Eze in the middle. And Merino can come into this game depending how the game is going. If we scored a couple of goals, Merino can come in and shore that midfield. But of course, you have Rice and Zubimendi, in the midfield. And then in the defense, pretty much picks itself in the last couple of games. So that's going to be Calafiori, it's going to be Saliba, it's going to be Gabriel, and it's going to be Timber. Timber has been exceptional in this last couple of games. And of course, you want to keep that momentum going. And then you've got Waneri, who I think, deserves to start a game soon. Mark Stallman, if you remember the preseason, he gave Joelinton a torrid time in that match. So I would love to see him come in at some point and play not a couple of minutes. But this game has got to be all about Arsenal. We cannot afford to lose any more ground on Liverpool. It would just make the narrative even more louder, and we spend another couple of days talking about Arsenal in the negative light when we should be preparing for our Champions League game against Olympiacos next week. So we've got to learn from our lessons from our past games against Newcastle. We can't afford to lose ground to Liverpool. Liverpool will play Crystal Palace early on Saturday. And if Liverpool do play and win that game, Arsenal will be 8 points behind Liverpool. So this is a very, very crucial game. I dare say it's a game that we cannot lose. Um, Not for anything more, but just to calm all the narratives, around Arsenal and put a little bit of pressure on Liverpool. I mean, last season we didn't put pressure on them at all, and we go into a round of games after this Newcastle where on paper you would say that they're all winnable games, and this is where we can put a lot of pressure on Liverpool going up to Christmas. So this game is really, really crucial. You cannot give them an 8 point cushion. I think an 8 point cushion relaxes them. They know that they've got a few ways that they can, make mistakes, and they can feel confident that it's not enough games to overturn an 8 point, lead so early on. So this game is absolutely important. Okay, so my prediction, guys, for this game. I think this is a game that we improve on our away record. We had a blip the last time we were away from home, losing to a wonder strike against Liverpool. I think we go into this game and we set it right, So I'm going for a 2-1 victory to Arsenal, um, because I feel like Newcastle will have the capability of nicking a goal at some point, but we can't afford to give them a goal first, because if we do, then it's going to be like the game against Newcastle last season. If you remember, that goal came a little bit early on, if I recall, and we just couldn't, get through. Newcastle would throw everything, on the line to stop us from scoring. So we've got to do that with Eze pulling the strings. Saka breaking his duel. I think he needs to get one over Livramento, and Gabriel Saliba returning to the form that we know that they can. I think this is a game that Arsenal take, even though it is a difficult game against Newcastle, because they don't make it very easy for us. So, goodness, what do you think? Join the debate. Put it in the comment section. How do you think this game will go? How confident are you going to St. James Park? Is it time that we break the hoodoo in the grounds like that? And drop your predictions in the comments as well. And don't forget to smash that like button, especially if you like the sort of content that's here. And for those of you that want, a nice interactive conversation around Arsenal, what's going on with Arsenal, especially around games, what we see in the games, reaction and previews. This is a channel that you want to tune into. So I appreciate all of you that keep joining. And win, lose, or draw, the debrief will be here to look at 3 ups and 3 downs. I'll see you in the next one.